The city that never was is a contemporary monster. We all know about magnificent old cities now reduced to ruins and pieces of rubble. But the city that never was is something different. I mean, unfinished cities which have traveled from nothing to ruins. The city that never was is a monster with two faces. Face number one is really ugly, because it is the result of bad planning, bad construction, and neglect. However, phase number two seems to be the beautiful one because it has sometimes been designed by star architects. In the end, this second phase can be uglier than phase number one because it is sometimes used by public clients as a green light for any kind of urban development. Phase number one and phase number two are different, but both quite often have led to failure, probably because both seem to pay more attention to the desires of real estate developers and politicians than to the final user needs, to the extent that these desires and needs can be completely at odds. This specific phenomenon is rooted in an abstract one, the belief that economic growth can be infinite, an idea that Western society takes for granted, before the crisis, I mean, an idea which can be fueled by the limitless greed of some developers and their lack of respect to land and landscape. In Spain, this phenomenon also means that building is considered an unlimited business, and so it has no direct link to what the market demands. I'm talking about the speculative market, where home prices were always increasing, and also the number of homes being built. This phenomenon was also fueled by ultra-liberal laws which allowed developers to develop every square meter except those explicitly protected. These laws were like petrols in the hand of a pyromaniac. Between 1987 and 2005, the artificial space in Spain rose from 670,000 hectares to more than 1 million. This meant an increase of 52%, or 35 times the size of the Barcelona city district. In 2006, Spain started the construction of 800,000 new homes, more than Germany, the United Kingdom, and Italy combined. The construction sector accounted for nearly 15%, we have heard 20% here today, maybe 20, of the Spanish GDP. Today is no more than 1 or 2%. Do you see this man? He is Mr. Banuelos. He was born in Spain into a family of no means. In 2007, when he was 41, he was number 95 in the Forbes list of billionaires. His wealth was 7.7 billion euros. He earned it through Astroc, his real estate company, a very good one at developing huge areas of land he did not own. Thanks to his legal skills, his links with politicians and banks, Mr. Banuelos bought millions of square meters, reclassified and sold it to other developers. He earned so a lot of money. In 2006, Astroc went public and its shares went from 6.4 euros to 70.5 euros in a rush like that. The property bubble was then at its peak. Banuelos entered the Forbes list. He was not to remain there for a long time. A year later, when the bubble burst, Mr. Banuelos' wealth plummeted. This man was among the biggest developers, but there were more. People who built holiday cities, like Marinador in the east of Spain, with a mixture of Venetian canals, hot springs, and golf courses. A project for a second Marinador city was postponed. Too sad. Among its amenities, there were some bizarre ones, such as a ski trail 10 minutes away from the beach, a 4D movie theater, or a prison-like restaurant. It was planned to house up to 2,100 persons, so more than the capital of the province where it was going to be built. Many of these developments failed, ending up in cities that never were. Julia Schulz, she has been quoted before, it's a German architect living in Barcelona, has just published in Spain Modern Ruins, a collection of 25 ghost towns she has been traveling to, shooting a collection of pictures like this. Apart from these private developers, there were a lot of public ones who promoted, for instance, cities of culture. Many of these were rooted in non-existent calculations about the people's cultural necessities, and so produced unnecessary facilities. Meanwhile, more homes were being built in Spain. Today we have there 700,000 unsold new homes. This is not a unique Spanish phenomenon. In Italy alone, there are 350 cities that never were, most in Sicily. That's why a name for this typology was invented, Siciliano incompiuto, or unfinished Sicilian. And of course, they also have a lot of white elephant buildings, among them Apollo Stadium with 22,000 seats in a town of 26,000 inhabitants with no polo tradition at all. China has a problem as well. Anyone going from Shanghai to its airport will notice it. Hundreds of tall towers with thousands of empty homes, ghost towns waiting for the future new city inhabitants that are still living now in the countryside. The total amount of empty homes in China could be now over 60 million. But let's go back to Spain, to Madrid, and have a look at his urban development. In 30 years, the Madrid subway net went from 82 kilometers to 300. This network growth was faster than the cities. Now, if you take the subway in the center of Madrid, you can end up in a station like this one, Pitis. This is the name, like Pity. Quite fitting, right? You get out of the station here, and you see this. No city around. Well, far away. So far, we have been talking about the ugly or quantitative phase of the city that never was. But I prefer the beautiful phase, the qualitative phase, namely the social consideration of star architecture as a Midas touch. In Spain, a lot of mayors and regional presidents chased after star architects and proposed deals to them. It was like a new religion, like a new age thing, as if iconic architecture had the healing power of a quack. This all began with the Guggenheim Bilbao. At the end of the 80s, Bilbao, in the north of Spain, was a city against the ropes. Its steel industry was obsolete. There was also problems with terrorism, unemployment, and heroin. So the local government decided to give the city a makeover. At that time, the Guggenheim Foundation was trying to make deals with European cities about where to show its collections. The idea was to build there a museum, as spectacular as Frank Lloyd Wright's one here in New York, and then to rent out their paintings with a nice fee in return. There were contacts with Venice and Salzburg, but when those cities heard about the cost of the operation, they backed out. It was too expensive. Until the day the Guggenheim Foundation knocked on Bilbao's door with a project by Frank Gehry, a reputed architect who was 65 and still waiting for his masterpiece. This is how the Bilbao Guggenheim story began, with three players like beat-up boxers, a city plunged into structural crisis, a seller which was making no sales, and a mature architect still waiting for his masterstroke. The museum opened in 1997, and success was immediate. The more optimistic forecast expected 500,000 visitors a year. They had 1.5 million first year. The rest of Spanish cities were envious. Their mayors thought, so, it is that easy. When your city is getting old, all you have to do is hire a smiling star architect, build a spectacular building, attract a lot of tourists, and see how your income skyrockets. This is how star architecture found in Spain a fertile land. Well, there was also another reason. In 1992, the government set up a great public relations campaign with events in three cities: Madrid with its European cultural capital, Sevilla and its international Expo, and Barcelona with the Olympic Games. Those events needed large investments, so other cities felt like they were missing out. The day they heard the next train coming, I mean the one loaded with star architects, they decided not to miss it. The outcomes of those operations are different. Some did well, some made a loss, some are unfinished, but none reached the Guggenheim success. I'm going to mention three cities here. In Valencia, in the east of Spain, the local government wanted to build a city of science and culture. So they called in Santiago Calatrava, then a promising Spanish architect living in Zurich. Calatrava said, okay, look, you have to build three buildings, a communications tower 380 meters high, a 3D movie theater, and a science museum. The client said, okay, go ahead. Then there was a change in the local government, and the whole operation was at risk for a while. But Calatrava is a sedative person. He convinced the new government to go ahead with a few changes. For instance, to forget about the communications tower, which already had its foundations done, and to build an opera house instead. And so it was done. They have there now the only opera house in the world with a communication tower's foundation. Then Calatrava suggested to build an aquarium, a shaded garden, an agora, and a bridge, and more. The client said, as usual, okay, go ahead. Those were bubble times in Spain, and money was flowing around. Today, Valencia has a new postcard, an expensive one, by the way. The first budget for the City of Culture was 175 million euros. They have spent now more than 1.2 billion. The operation deficit is 700 million euros, and Calatrava's fees are around 100 million euros. So you may like the wide skeletal Calatrava's architecture, or you may not, but in any case you will not like its price. Santiago de Compostela, in the northwest of Spain, is the Camino de Santiago's pilgrim's finishing line. There they have another city of culture, projected by Peter Eisman. You all know him well, but you probably don't know his client, Manuel Fraga. As you say in English, politics make strange bedfellows. This is very true of this couple. Fraga was a Francoist who recycled himself as a democratic president. This is Francoist times with Franco himself. And we have the recycled man under a Churchill sculpture in London, where he was ambassador for a while. Fraga was a Francoist, who recycled himself as a democratic president of Galicia, which is the region in the northwest of Spain. Afterwards, he wanted to enter history as a man of culture. And how? Well, the easy way, building a city of culture which helped with the help of a star architect. Was it a bad idea? Yes, indeed it was. They started building it in 2001 with no serious program of uses. Construction was supposed to be done by 2004. Well, it is still not finished. The whole plan consists of 6 huge buildings. 4 of them are working so-so. The other 2 are unfinished. The optimists say that this complex could be finished by 2017. The pessimists say that it will never be. The latter could be a nice solution because the day the whole city will be finished, the overhead costs will rise to 30% of the Galicia culture budget. Zaragoza, halfway between Madrid and Barcelona, this is the third city example, hosted an international expo in 2008. A lot of pavilions were built. The idea was to recycle it as offices after the expo, most of them. The expo's subject, water and sustainability, was good enough so as to guarantee its success. But local politicians thought that success was a matter of image too. How to get this image? Well, again, an iconic building was the answer. They decided to build a criss-cross of bridge and pavilion. There was a competition and Zaha Hadid won it, despite the fact that, as the jury pointed out, the project had problems regarding its hydrodynamic insertion into the river, its coast, and time schedule. Hadid's pavilion bridge was shaped like a gladiola with shark-like skin and a single pillar to hold it up. The land under the riverbed was very bad for building on. The right thing could have been to use more than one pillar and so distribute the load. But Hadid had designed the gladiola shark thing with just one pillar. The engineers were forced to dig 75 meters down looking for solid rock. It was then necessary to redo the whole structural project because Hadid's was underdeveloped. It was necessary to build an underwater breakwater to protect the one pillar, which was too wide. That pillar was like a boat trying to advance on one of its sides instead of by its prow. The final cost was 80 million euros for a bridge with a pavilion useless for exhibitions because it is too narrow and low. After 6 months, the Zaragoza Expo was over. Do you want to see what came next? Just have a look. The iconic building has been closed since then. In other words, Spain was for 20 years a paradise for star architects and iconic architecture. The MoMA opened here in New York on site an exhibition with about 50 projects in Spain. At the time, the idea was that any development was okay if it helped to redo a city's image, involving a star architect, of course. But often, the star architect behaved like an egoist. Well, this is what I think, this is on site, and this is what I think of Jürgen Mayer's Plaza de la Encarnación in Sevilla here, or about Santiago Calatrava's auditorium, hotel, and offices in Oviedo. Look at this. A little bit out of scale, don't you think? Doesn't it look like the right spaceship for a Tim Burton's Mars Attacks 2 movie? So, summarizing, we had, on the one hand, a lot of wild development in the countryside, and on the other hand, a lot of star architects working with a carte blanche for anything. Now the question is how to fight back. We have three ways in Spain. First, wait for the end of the crisis. We need a mixture of lower prices and loan market recovery, more jobs and time. If we get that, some ghost cities could come to life. Second, we can try to give new uses to ghost towns through new land planning. If we bring new industries to those areas, we could give them a new meaning. There is a third way, demolition. They have been doing this in Ireland, where the bubble left 2,000 projects unfinished. Really, you can kill the ugly monster driving a bulldozer, but you can also try to erase it using plastic surgery. Look at this. This is a wonderful place in the north coast of Catalonia, where once was a touristic resort by the sea. On the bottom, you see the resort as it was. On the top, you see the place as it is now, back to its original shape. You may say, restoring nature is too expensive. You're right. Then be patient and let nature do the job by itself. There is a fourth option, a critical one. Change the law to prevent any new wild urbanization. Fight against corruption and money laundering. Look for more public control, for nature conservation, for the common interest. We all know about experiences of tight public control that worked out well. For instance, the Barcelona 92 transformation. It just was a matter of public control and good planning done by the best architects and urbanists in town. This way, Spain should be able to avoid new wild developments. But we live in a global world today, with global players, even more greedy than locals. So the problem is far from over. Here is an example. Eurovegas, a project by Sands Corporation, which is eager to build its first European gambling city. Mr. Adelson's, its boss, set up a competition between Madrid and Barcelona in which the winner will get his project. Mr. Adelson was asking both contenders for better land, better prices, better tax cuts, etc. He wanted the local politicians to change the law to meet his interests. Last September, an area of 12 million square meters near Madrid was selected to build a new city with an investment of 17,000 million euros, namely 13 times the money spent in Valencia City of Culture. And now, let me finish with a forecast. I'm afraid that a project like Mr. Adelson's could bring the opportunity, God forbid, to merge into one the two faces of the contemporary monster we are talking about here. On the one hand, the ugly one, the wild organization of landscape. On the other hand, the beautiful face provided by star architects. To be honest, this is just an intuition. It is true that many Sands Corporation's developments, those in Macau, for instance, look very much like Las Vegas. But the Singapore one does not. Mr. Adelson hired there Moshe Safdie, the Israeli architect who won a claim at the Montreal Expo many years ago, and who in Singapore has built 3 towers with a 150 meters vanishing edge pool on top, overlooking the city and the China Sea. The purpose there was, like in Eurovegas, to build an enormous leisure complex with full services for its visitors, who will have no need to leave it and so will do no good to the cities around they claim they are going to help. I mean, Madrid this time, but Macau before, and in the future, somewhere in Vietnam, South Korea, Taiwan, China, or other countries where Mr. Adelson is trying to build his leisure cathedrals. Well, Madrid won the contest. Do you think that Barcelona gave up? No way. The day after, the Catalan government announced the construction of 6 new resort cities and theme parks, close to a pre-existing one, which is called Aventura, there, on the Catalonian coast, with a lot of casinos in it, of course. This project has a public-private partnership. On the public side, the Catalan government. And on the private side, guess who is there? Do you remember the guy on the left? Yes, he is Mr. Banuelos. He had to rush from Spain to Brazil when the property bubble burst. Now he smells the business opportunity and he's back and eager to build and build and build again. So in the end, it is not just a matter of finishing the cities that never were, or filling them with people, or finding new uses for them. It is also a matter of passing new laws which will protect our land and landscape, because global players fly easily from Spain to Brazil or elsewhere and back. But the land does not fly to Brazil. Never. It stays with us forever. So let's take care of it. Thank you very much.